Welcome to Mack-n-Cheeze Music Podcast with your hosts, Bryan DeHart.
Haha, Bruno, what's happening?
I'm mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take it anymore.
Whoa, what happened?
It's not my fault.
I never said it was.
I got something to say.
This better be serious.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
Yeah, feel better now?
Yeah, sure thing. So anyway.
All right, now that that's done, let's get to this. Today's podcast is titled The Art of Distilling. We are fortunate today because we have Ian MacNeil from Glass Distillery as our guest.
The dude abides.
Artists are people with a genius for finding a new answer, a new connection, or a new way of getting things done. Thank you, Seth Godin, from his book, Linchpin.
Obviously.
How does a person move from a career of business and finance to distilling? Well, you're about ready to find out.
To infinity and beyond!
All right, everybody, welcome to Mack-n-Cheeze Music Podcast. Today we have Ian MacNeil from Glass Distillery. Today's concept is about the art of distilling. Ian has an extensive background. You graduated from the University of South Carolina and also from Edinburgh, Scotland?
Yeah, that's right. And it seemed to have nothing about the art of distilling there except maybe the art of drinking, Bryan.
So tell me about South Carolina and Edinburgh, Scotland.
Edinburgh, Scotland.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Michigan. And
Okay.
I wanted to be someplace where I could play a little golf year-round. And I didn't need to go to University of Michigan. Although I seemingly should have had some Michigan friends, given the most recent win by the Wolverines.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to go
not
somewhere.
unusual for them, though.
Yeah, it's not unusual. But anyway, I wanted to go somewhere in the South where I could play some golf. And one thing led to another, and I ended up at the University of South Carolina. I wound up not actually playing golf at the university through some weird circumstances of the 1980s and 1990s and how things happened. But I did get the opportunity to attend Edinburgh University in Scotland, study honors economics at the birthplace of modern economics, where Adam Smith came up with his theory.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, Bryan, I got to play golf and in the birthplace of the game for Edinburgh University for a year while I was there. So it turned out to be a cool thing.
Was it a scholarship?
No, it was, ask my parents. It was their scholarship. No, but I got to play and I got to be educated there for a year. I basically did my major field of study, which was economics, in Scotland, and then I came back and finished my degree at University of South Carolina.
How long were you at South Carolina?
Well, I was there for 3 years for university, but after I graduated, that's where I started my working career. I sort of started my working career before the formal work, because I worked during college, but then I started a landscaping business. I was Mr. Landscape Extraordinaire, and then started my real job. I worked for a company called Pirelli Cable Corporation. So, you know the tires? The tires are an afterthought from when the company originally started. They used to make cables. The compound that was used to jacket the outside of these first cables that were being produced happened to be this rubber that worked well for this new burgeoning industry in the early 20th century, which was tires for cars. And so Pirelli,
wild.
what people are known for now, the people know Pirelli, spun off. So I worked for Pirelli in the fiber optic cable division in Lexington, South Carolina, right next to Columbia, and worked there for a couple years. And then my girlfriend and fiancée-to-be and wife-to-be attended University of South Carolina in their Master's in International Business program. And then that kind of led to the next chapter in our life where we moved to Russia. South Carolina is close at heart.
So when you were in Scotland, is that where you developed a passion for distilling, or was it the beginnings of interest for you?
Bryan, that is where I developed my passion for booze. and because It is the social life and everything in the United Kingdom, especially in Scotland, in the dark days of winter. You spend a lot of time in pubs and drinking and socializing and what have you. And I was introduced to single malt Scotch in the late 80s and early 90s. In fact, when I came back to the United States after our year abroad, we didn't come back to the United States. Both my wife and I, girlfriend at the time, were over there. We came back and I had to educate my father and my father-in-law to be on this great, beautiful spirit called single malt Scotch. You can imagine some 19, 20-year-old punk-ass kid trying to tell my 50-plus-year-old father and father-in-law to be that the swill like Johnny Walker Black that they drank on a daily basis was nothing like this.
Right.
Unbelievable.
They didn't believe you.
No. They're going, oh my God, kid. We've drank more single malt than you
would
could
even
possibly
know.
even
Yeah,
name.
you're not even possible.
But I was so full of myself, and I told them all about this. But it really did develop this passion. I joined the Single Malt Scotch Whisky Society at Edinburgh. They actually have a group in the United States that does these events and tastings all over the country. I joined the original group in the sort of the industrial district down on the docks in Scotland while I was there, and really got a great education into the gorgeous, beautiful, subtle distinctions between real single malt. And it's not that blended whiskey is bad or good. And using the drink that my father-in-law always drank, which was Johnny Walker Black, the art, as we're talking about the art of distilling,
right.
The art of something like Johnny Walker Black is that decade after decade after decade, and I don't mean year, it tastes the same, and it's made up of hundreds of whiskeys that they blend so that it tastes the same. So that when you pick up a Johnny Walker Black, you don't need to know the vintage. You know what it tastes like. There's an art to doing that because it's a recipe that you got to execute on. There's an appreciation for what I didn't understand back when I was in my early 20s and late teens that, just because it's different than what I was experiencing with the single malt doesn't mean it's not as artistic of an expression to make something that's the same year in and year out and predictable. It's just how you interpret it, right?
Well, you have to have a lot of admiration for the blenders and the tasters. Where do they develop that kind of nose and that kind of sensory perception to be able to integrate different elements from different years, the variations of what happened on that particular season that changed the characteristics of the Scotch?
Oh, you've tapped on it. Let me tell you that one of the other places where that is so prevalent and it's generational is in France in the cognac industry. Cognacs are only distilled for a certain period of time each year. They have to be made from certain recipes of grapes, a whole bit. And so the big cognac houses that you and I know without talking brands, but the big boys, they don't make all their own distillate. They buy from all of these distilleries throughout the cognac region because they can't produce enough in a short period of time that allows you to be called cognac. So there's all these distilleries. And then what there are at these cognac houses are buyers that go buy this distillate and then they go set it down. Well, those buyers that are buying this distillate are a certain age and they're tasting things and they're evaluating things with their talented and gifted sensory perception. And they're laying down spirits for 10, 20, 30 years or more. And they're buying these things that it's going to be someone that maybe hasn't even been born yet that is going to blend that into a brand of cognac that you and I are going to consume sometime or the next generation is going to consume. And it's something that we almost can't appreciate in this country because we don't have anything that's like generational adaptation of a spirit's product. It is exactly that. Someone that's tasting it is not even going to be the one that makes it, who's not even going to be the one that sells it.
I have been intrigued by it for a long time. Let me ask you a couple questions here. Now, you spent some time in Russia.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, maybe that's how I further developed my
appreciation for vodka.
Yeah, appreciation for. There were some foods that I'm maybe not the most adventurous eater, but I didn't want to cause negative international diplomacy between my company and the Russians that we were working with. I consumed shit that I really didn't want. The best way to make sure that whatever you're consuming stays down, wash it down with a lot of excess booze. And so I drank a lot of vodka. And I'll tell you, the drinking tradition there is so different than in other places in the world. And the expectation to consume it is very high, even at the lunch hour. You know, in the 80s, there was the 2-martini lunch and, one's not enough, three's too many. There you drank a 375 on your own, and you would be given it, and you would expect to be drinking that during whatever meal you were drinking.
How was anybody protective after that?
You weren't. And let me tell you, you were hammered whenever you were done.
Even the people that you were associating with.
Oh my gosh, yes. And let me tell you, so you had to be careful about what you were willing to talk about and what the situation was that you were discussing, whatever you're negotiating. You mix business and pleasure, and make sure that it was the personal part of business where you're learning to just learn about the person you were dealing with. Don't try to discuss anything of real substance.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's discernment is you learn how to be discerning when you've been consuming that much alcohol, and and it becomes a mind over matter thing. It's discipline.
Yeah, it is discipline.
Regardless of what state you're in your inebriation, you're still responsible for what it is you are saying.
Brian, I chucked a lot over my shoulder, I got to tell you. Because I wasn't drinking always the highest quality booze over there as well.
Well, you're drinking what everybody else was doing.
Yeah, you got it.
You were there right after the collapse of the Soviet Union, man.
Yes.
So tell the story about you at the White House.
Yep. Oh my God. It was perestroika. And I arrived in Russia fresh with them, a little bit of language training and some knowledge about what the industry might hold for me.
Do you speak Russian?
I can swear and cause a good argument, but I was in no way fluent. And the industry I was in the telecommunications industry, there was a lot of protocol for how you did business. So there were always interpreters, whether or not my counterpart in business spoke English or I spoke Russian. Everything was dual translated all the time. So every conversation took twice as long. When we first arrived was when the Politburo then, their parliament, was at odds with the rest of the government, the president at the time. They didn't agree with one another, and unlike in our country, the president just used the might of the military to start throwing bombs and tanks against what would be our Congress,
right? And
telling them they either had to come out or they were going to bomb them out. It's so different. Not to belittle the situations that happen in our country, but we are so sheltered from how difficult things can be in the rest of the world because we haven't had to deal with some other cultures and societies that it's pretty rough out there.
Yeah.
In the world.
So you got some scars on your hands.
Yeah, oh my God, like they wrapped the White House. This would be like wrapping the Capitol building in razor wire and fencing and saying, you can't come in, and if you don't come out, we're going to burn you down. And I was going to one of my first interviews to get my first job when I was in Russia. And I'm walking around in a Burberry trench coat in the middle of the winter and a fur hat trying to fake it like I wasn't a Westerner.
Right.
And the guys are dragging razor wire down the street, and I got 2 knuckles ripped open, and I'm sitting in my first interview holding my hand, trying to not show that I'm bleeding. The person that's interviewing me is trying to ask me what happened, and I'm embarrassed to say, I kind of got caught in the middle of the little riot that's going on because I walked across the bridge because I didn't know what metro stop to get off at.
Was it a Russian employer?
It was an American employer with a Russian office. So I was going to be an expatriate, so to speak, in a foreign country. A company called Belcom. They did satellite telecommunication services to embassies and oil companies and you name it throughout the former Soviet Union. Brian, it was so exciting. It was crazy. Be a young guy and my girlfriend and wife to be at the time in a foreign country with the level of responsibility we had, because There just weren't a lot of people that were interested in doing it.
Oh, I see. That's how you got the gig.
That's how we got the gig. Yeah, no one else is going to do it.
Nobody else wanted to
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
It's kind of like the Wild West.
It was so the Wild West, and even down to like the laws around business and taxes and everything that was sort of we operate within a day-to-day environment that it's sort of defined. And yeah, our legislature is always busy trying to change things, but it's small changes all the time. There, on a month-to-month basis, significant changes were taking place. You didn't know what was going to be legal or not legal from month to month. That's why it felt like the Wild West.
So how did you make the transition from business to the business of distilling?
You know, my background started in the telecommunications industry. And at first it was making physical product like I described with this company called Pirelli. We were making fiber optic cable. I moved into services, providing satellite telecommunications, internet services in the early 90s in Russia. When my wife and I'll say it this way, we had enough. 4.5 years, contracts were over, what have you. We decided to come back to the United States. We thought we were going to move to Chicago. In fact, both of us had accepted jobs to live in Chicago. We visited the Pacific Northwest in tourist month, end of June, early July in 1996. Happened to be a really nice summer. And the tourism director worked his magic, and we moved. We said, you know what? This is awesome. So we learned that we could ski, play golf, get out on the water, go mountain climbing any month, 12 months a year, under the right circumstances. And that's not something you can do in many places. To be honest, it was very similar to the weather environment that we experienced when I lived in Scotland, although they're never going to hire a Yankee to work in Edinburgh. Seattle felt the same way. The mountains, the water, the people. Instead of moving to Chicago, after we visited that 1 week in late June, early July of 96, we moved out here. This is home.
Yeah.
I've lived here longer than anywhere else we have ever
It's a beautiful area.
And we'll always live here.
Yeah. I've been here since 87.
Yeah. And so we made the transition because of living circumstances. And then we both found jobs. And when I got out here, I started working in the software services business and continued in that. And while doing that, I kept always having this feeling that I wanted to start and build something myself. And I couldn't figure out what it was because while I'm not a code writer, I could sell what was being developed. I could describe what a company could do and sell those services. I wasn't the one that was creating the software code to solve a new problem. I always had my eye on the prize, and that was to start something where I could use some creative juices in my body to say, I want to make something. Through a couple different starts, and at the time when it really got serious, some law changes, I decided that my calling was going to be in distilled spirits.
Were you distilling at home?
No, you can't. So legally, you can't do it. But I had so many friends in the wine business. I developed a love for brandy, and my wife and I really loved wines. We started collecting Washington wines, and I'm a huge fan of the Washington wine industry because I've watched it build. I've watched some of the greatest brands in the state come from next to nothing when they were starting to being real award-winning brands in the world for the quality of wine that's produced because of the geology and geography and the weather of our area. And not wanting to start something that would go not only compete against, but just knowing I can't make something as good as my friends are making because I don't have the experience.
Right.
And I really didn't want to just invest in a business that I couldn't be truly vested in by making it, selling it, creating it. In 2010, when the state got out of the liquor distribution business in the state of Washington, where they were no longer peddling peddling booze, they got out of it. So now you could sell it direct. They'd also just only a couple years earlier created a license for a craft distillery. So a small group, a small individual, whatever it was, to start a distillery. Those two things coming together around 2010 and me writing a little business plan, what I thought could be a business, starting a craft distillery, came together to say, this is what I want to do. I want to make distilled spirits. at the time I said, I want to do something that celebrates Washington. And yeah, I mean, if I said to you, especially a guy who also was a somm in his second life, do you know all about Washington wheat?
I actually do not.
Yeah. So it's not that our wheat is so much more special. We actually grow a lot of dryland wheat. So our ground is great and our weather is great for growing wheat. But it doesn't make it any more special than that which we grow in Kansas or Minnesota or Montana. But we grow really, really good wine grapes. And it's because of the geology and the geography and the guys that started these vineyards in the late 80s that we are now renowned in the quality of the grapes that are produced in this state. And following on the backs of the production of really good quality fruit have become some really incredible winemakers that have come from all over the world to call this place home. Those two things indicated to me if I'm going to specialize in something that's in the distilled spirit space, why don't I focus on something that I'm also very proud of? When I buy a lot of Washington wine as a retail wine buyer, let's see if I can make something. So we test distilled.
So now, first of all, so did you have to become bonded and licensed before you could start distilling?
Yes, you do.
Wink, wink,
wink,
nudge,
wink.
nudge,
Exactly.
nudge, yeah.
But
yeah.
So yes, legally you can't. So you can make some wine and you
Yeah.
can brew beer.
Yeah.
As a resident of the United States, but you can't distill spirits. That's part of the TTB laws that say you can't make distilled spirits. I mean, it's just you can't grow a cannabis plant either. You illicit grower.
How are you supposed to learn if you can't distill it?
Exactly, it's crazy. So you go to classes and they can teach you. And I did some classes and learned that I had some. Yeah, I was going to say it without sounding too arrogant. I had some innate talent for being able to taste what was the difference between good and bad distillate.
Yeah, well, dude, you had a lot of practice in Russia.
Yeah, yes. And really, honestly, it's more science than anything. I mean, a good distiller takes, if you are slow and patient with what you're doing, and you have good quality equipment, and you start with good quality raw materials, you can learn it. And we are so much more gifted with the science of what distillation is versus generations previous or even just decades previous. We can make good quality spirits by being a scientist. So I have an inherent interest in every cell in my body of science. And I would have been a doctor or even a research scientist.
It's too much work.
Yeah, it was too much work. Actually, I said I wasn't so dedicated to my fellow man that I wanted to give up my life, but it still fascinates me. And so that's why I kind of took to it. If I can record something and do it the same way because it tastes this certain way, then just keep repeating it. And so you can really teach anybody who can do something consistently to be a good distiller.
Or anything for that matter. Anything.
Yeah, anything.
It doesn't matter.
Musician, whatever. You can be creative around it. And so when, kind of going back to your original question, how do you become a distiller? Well, I kind of looked and said, I think I could do this. I think there's some stepping stones that have been laid out in front of me. I just need to put a little mortar in between the stepping stones and create something. And that's what we did. And I said, I'm going to start by making really good quality distillate, but I'm only going to make vodka because from a business perspective, I didn't want to go out there and try and make 5 different things and have to try and go sell 5 different things. I make the finest vodka in Washington State from the best raw materials I can. That was my goal. And we keep doing it. And we've won awards. And back in the early days, 12 years ago, 13 years ago when I started, I would say, it's hard to say that you're so great if you don't have some kind of awards to back it up because you sound like an egotist.
What was the road to those awards?
God, you know what? Some of the awards are kind of gross. You pay these huge entry fees, Brian, and you send your product in and then someone reviews it. But some of these guys that are reviewing it don't really have that much background. Others do, but you don't necessarily know that when you're getting started. But the one thing that I have found, if you can enter a competition, you may have to pay to play because you got to enter it in. But if they do it blind, they don't see the packaging, they don't know the brand, and then they give an honest answer that seems to be coming from someone that actually knows what they're tasting,
right?
Then that's a pretty good pat on the back. What it doesn't do, it doesn't buy you distribution. It doesn't make you win or lose any kind of amount of customers. It all comes down to marketing. But what it does, it gives you confidence as the distiller that what you're making is quality. And it's quality that's sort of unbiased quality. And if you do it over and over across different regions and different demographics, it gives you the confidence to know that you have a broad appeal of your product if more and more people say it's good. Now, if someone says it's good after they see your awards, that's a biased opinion, and then I don't give that much merit.
Well, I mean, you actually took some awards in China.
We have won top awards, Brian, and I can say this with I don't want it to sound arrogant.
No.
In China, North America, and Europe. So that's kind of pretty broad demographic and perspective, right. And we are tiny. We are a nascent little company, and in a huge industry filled with billion-dollar players.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's kind of a nice little notch on your bedpost, but that's all it is.
When you took bronze at the 2016 Berlin International Spirits Competition, were you there?
No, I wasn't even there. I got invited to participate in this
perfect.
thing. Yes, and in that same award was we got the best grape distilled spirit at the competition and bronze in the vodka category. And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. It took me more effort to figure out how to ship it to them and get it through customs. I thought that was more of a crowning achievement than the award.
Some of these competitions, you haven't been there?
Yes, it's crazy. Now, I honestly, I did get to go to this one in Hong Kong where the competition was, they had all sorts of different categories, both wine and spirits. And I was fortunate enough to be able to actually go and visit that one. So that was pretty fun.
Where did you stay when you were there?
I stayed in Hong Kong, and I was part of a booth that was for the Washington Wine Commission. I mean, that's where they actually showed my spirits.
Were you guys there as a group?
Yes, I was there, and I was there, and one of the guys I was with that also won an award was Christoph Hedges.
Okay, gotcha.
From Hedges Winery.
Is that Tom's son?
Tom's son.
Okay,
and, we raised a lot of hell in Hong Kong for a week. No, it was phenomenal. We were there pouring wines and spirits, and so many people really appreciated tasting things that were different. And then we were tasting things like Christoph, the award was a bottle of Baijiu. Are you familiar with Baijiu?
I don't know what Baijiu is.
You are a talented, with huge depth sommelier, and you don't know it. And that's why...
No, there's so much liquor out there, I can't keep
I know.
up.
That's what the greatest thing about being involved in the whole world community. More Baijiu, a spirit that is distilled from sour gum or soybeans.
Oh, wait a minute. Is it from Indonesia? Where is it?
They're Indonesia, China.
Yeah.
More of that is drunk in the world than vodka.
Yeah, I know vaguely about baijiu.
Well,
now that you prompted my
I
memory.
vaguely know that I don't particularly care for it.
Was it the after effects?
No, it was the initial taste in my mouth that made me want to vomit.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, Chinese wines. Trust me, man. The ones out of the can. Oh my God,
dude. Let me tell you. And you know what? There are some great baijiu, but it's just not for my body.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that my palate can't appreciate the finer qualities of that particular
it's
spirit.
An acquired taste.
Oh, it is acquired. Anyway, so not to offend your listeners, but those who are really fans of baijiu.
I don't think anybody's going to be offended.
I got to tell you. And yet there's more of that produced in the world, and we don't have a depth of understanding of it just because it's not part of our culture. And that's what is so fantastic.
Right. That's right.
You can have something we don't even know of, and more of it is consumed on a daily basis than name your favorite.
When did you establish the distillery?
The process started in 2010. Finding a location, and I'm gonna go back to what you alluded to earlier. When you start a distilled spirits producer, that's called a DSP. You get a DSP license from the TTB, the Tobacco Trade Bureau division of the IRS, that gives you the right to do it. You have to invest in and fully set up your distillery.
That's crazy.
And have it built. And then the TTB comes on and inspects it and then gives you the right to start producing.
Oh my God! How many businesses do not start because of this?
It's amazing, and you can't even test your equipment. And you can start with $50,000 or $500 or $50 million worth of equipment, but all in the same vein. You can't start producing until they give you the stamp and you have your license. In order to get started, there's like each step that goes along the way. So you got to find a piece of property. Landlords don't want you to get started without a lease. So you get a piece of property and you start paying rent. Then you design the distillery based on the space that you have. Then you buy the equipment. Then you get the equipment manufactured or you acquire it some way. Then you install it. So we started in 2010 and I got my license in February of 2012. We got going and I had my first couple batches in February, March. And my first sale of product starting in 2010 was April of 2012. And that first invoice that I had, Brian, was to the Seattle Space Needle for their 60th anniversary celebration. And so I still have it sort of hanging on my wall, the legitimately invoice 0001 was the Seattle Space Needle for 12 cases of Glass Vodka.
Holy cow, man.
Pretty cool. Small, tiny little feather in my cap.
You have developed an entire product line of different vodkas. So I'm going to ask you some very specific questions here. And I'm going to ask for the inspiration of all these.
Okay.
So tell me about the Glass Kona.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, what was that?
So a very good friend of mine, Chris Upchurch, the original winemaker for DeLille. Chris is a geek about flavors and process just like I am. He was visiting us and my wife and I, we were skiing together. He's a coffee nut. I'm a coffee nut. And he's telling me about the freshness of fresh roasted coffee and the difference between like a store-bought tomato that's been around and chilled for 2 or 3 weeks.
Months.
Yeah. And a tomato that you pull off the vine that has never been chilled. And he said, you know the difference? I said, yeah. And he said, that's the difference between coffee and not coffee. And he says, I roast my own coffee. And I go, get out of here. And he goes, yes. And he tells me all about it. And I got into roasting my own coffee. And I geeked out on roasting my own coffee. So fast forward, that was about 2001, 2002. I've made Glass Vodka. We did the straight vodka. We're doing pretty well. We won some awards, and people are telling me I need to do a flavor. And I'm going, well, if I'm going to do a flavor, the only thing I really want to do is make a flavor of something like coffee.
Could I stop for just a second?
Yeah.
What people were telling you had to have a flavor?
Friends and family, the industry, the industry says you can't just be a one-trick pony. You got to have all these different flavors. You got to come out. I'm listening to inputs from everywhere around me. And I'm pretty good at giving people the stiff arm Heisman if it doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, why do I want to spend the time doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
But I really love coffee.
Like you're jonesing over there.
And I'm thinking, I know I can do this. And there's a particular favorite cocktail from the Detroit area that I loved called the Hummer. And I thought, this is a way to do something that really would go with a secondary passion. And that would be putting coffee together with vodka, but real coffee. So I developed Kona, and I'll give you the little history about the name Kona. But I developed Kona to be something that was a true expression of coffee and vodka together. Most flavored vodkas, that is a technical definition from the TTB, flavored vodka. Most flavored vodka is less than 40% alcohol or less than 80 proof. And that's because they add sugar and other flavors to it. And I said, because of my inexperience, I don't care. And I'm certainly not going to add sugar because I don't have a big sweet tooth. I'm going to keep all of my vodkas at 40% alcohol. And a lot of distilleries will do that, and they'll make them less than 40% because you pay less tax. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is finances. I blended real cold brew coffee together with vodka and made it 40%. I did it post distillation, and there's a reason I say that is because I didn't use coffee flavoring in the distillate when I'm making it. That's why it's, if your listeners were to see what we're talking about, it's dark. It looks just like coffee. That's because I add the coffee to proof, or what's called gauge the spirit down to 40% using real cold brew coffee. And so the combination is, it smells like fresh roasted coffee. You taste it and it's not bitter because I'm using, the secret is I'm using cold brew coffee, not hot brewed coffee. Slows is the key to everything. Slow roasted meats, slow distilled spirits. Cold brew coffee is made slowly. So you get something that's got a great intensity of coffee. It's got the sweetness of coffee at the initial onset. It's not bitter because it doesn't have the tannins from the hot brewed coffee. And then it finishes clean without a harsh aftertaste. And it's basically an espresso martini in a bottle. You don't have to chill it, shake it. Just put the bottle in the freezer and pour it in a martini glass, and it's an espresso martini. Add beans. Yeah. If you want it creamy, add a little cream. And if you want it sweet, add some agave nectar. Don't add sugar. I say that because it's just...
You're such a purist.
Oh, whatever. But the name Kona, let me tell you where this comes from. So glass, to even back up further to a question you haven't asked, the reason it's glass... One of my second favorite things about Washington State is that we are now the epicenter of the glass world, the glass art world, and what we commonly refer to
beginning
as
with
studio
Chihuly,
glass.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was something that was sort of a nascent industry in the 70s when Dale got going, we are now one of the epicenters of glass study in the world. People come here to make this their home because it's more than just an art form. It can be a way of life. They can make a living working in glass. They can work for companies that make glass. They can work on their own. And I have a bunch of friends who are in the glass
There's a ton
world.
of shops around the city.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
So many. And because of that, and sort of my love of that, and let me tell you, glass, vodka, is a liquid expression of art. Glass in its form at room temperature is hard. So that glass that we serve a drink in, the glass art, the beautiful things that Dale Chihuly makes, all of the glass artists that I know that make these unbelievable objects, at room temperature, they're solid. But when you heat them up, they're liquid. So it's a liquid expression that you cool to make a hard form. Vodka really is the same thing. At temperature, it's a vapor. And at different temperatures, it's liquid and solid. So it's my liquid expression of art, and so is glass. It's my way to say a nod and a thank you to all my buddies who are glass artists and who make their living doing that. If you're in Southern Kentucky and you bought a bottle of vodka and you didn't know who the hell Ian MacNeil was, then glass doesn't sound like I was trying to make diamond or sapphire vodka and some arrogant bullshit. It's just glass. Glass kind of eludes this idea of clean and pure. But if you know me, it's really because I have buddies that are glass artists and I really want to pay a nod to them. Kona
That's pretty cool.
actually comes from the idea of a piece of glass that a great friend of mine, Patricia Davidson, who is a renowned glass artist that's worked with Dale Chihuly, one of the few females that have ever worked with Dale in his hot shop as a gaffer, made and donated to the Pilchuck Glass School auction, of which I chaired several years ago. And she put it up, and it was part of the auction. It was a nice donation. And it's this gorgeous palm frond with 4 hibiscus flowers that are separate that sit in it.
That's just gorgeous.
It is spectacular.
Yeah.
And I bought it, and I asked Patty, I said, if I buy this, do I get the artistic rights to it? And you know, in the music industry, just because you buy something doesn't mean you also get the artistic rights. You need to negotiate that. You need to have that part of the agreement. And a purchase contract doesn't mean you have it. So I asked her, I said, if I buy this, could I get the artistic rights to your glass as well? And she goes, well, yeah, but why? I said, because I want to name my coffee-flavored vodka after your piece of art, and I want to put your art on my label.
Nice.
And we did. So Kona actually refers to this gorgeous piece of art that if you were to visit my tasting room in Woodinville, you would see the original Kona. And that's what it's named after. So each one of our flavored spirits that followed that first foray into flavored vodkas follows not the name, but either a piece of art or a description of what it is. So we have a honey flavored vodka we call Nectar. We have a cinnamon flavored vodka that we call Spice. The coffee obviously is Kona.
You talked a lot about the quality of your ingredients. What exactly is Hapuna Kai? Is it
Kie.
Kie coffee?
So in my efforts to try and figure out how to make this coffee flavored vodka, I met a guy. His name's Eric. He's one of the owners of 7 Coffee Roasters. They're a great coffee roaster up in Ballard. They supply a lot of the espresso houses and boutique coffee shops around. They even sell their stuff in bag form to a couple supermarkets, Thriftway and what have you. They make fantastic coffee. They source coffee from different places, and one of the other owners is the buyer from a family coffee plantation on the Big Island of Hawaii, and it's the Hapuna Kihei estate. So we get the beans from Hawaii. They're green. We bring them to Ballard. We roast them. In 48 hours after we roast them, we grind them to a cold brew grind, which is a little bit thicker than a French roast grind. And then we create a cold brew extract. That's what they call extract when you slowly soak the coffee versus using steam to like make espresso, or where you pour boiling water over it to make brewed coffee. Cold brew is a slow extract. So it makes a really concentrated coffee that, because it's been made slowly, doesn't pull out the tannins from the beans, so it's not bitter. Bitterness is what gives the tannins, right? Cold brew is really intense coffee that if you take a cold brew shot, put it in a cup, and fill it with boiling water, you might have one of the better cups of coffee you've ever had in your life. Straight cold brew is awesome.
Yeah. Now, the glass nectar, where do you get your honey?
Danny Sullivan owns Shipwreck Honey. And I met Danny because Danny invited me to become one of the Seattle Seafair Pirates.
Oh, are you a pirate?
I am a pirate.
Oh, that's great. Arr.
I was a Seattle Seafair Pirate back in 2015. I was one of the invited guys of the community.
How big is your sword?
Dude, it was big. Yeah, I had a big sword.
Ooh, that's good.
So I was the Davy Jones, the sort of the invited guest, and Danny was a new member of the Ale and Quail Society, which is the organization that is the Seattle Seafair Pirates. They're the private nonprofit that is the performance group. When they're on the outside, they're called the Seafair Pirates. Danny happens to be a beekeeper, runs an apiary called Shipwreck Honey, and his connection was that he was the beekeeper that managed the apiary for Snoqualmie Lodge up at the falls. Oh, you know all the honey that was there?
Yeah.
Well, that joint has a lot of honey on their menu.
Evidently,
remember?
yeah.
Well, that honey came from all their hives that were up above the falls. And Danny happened to be the beekeeper that managed those hives. When they were bought by Columbia Hospitality, I had some folks at Columbia Hospitality reach out to me and say, hey, Ian, would you be able to make us a honey vodka? And I'm going, you basically make mead. If your listeners know what mead is, so look, it's a honey liquor. You can, but it takes a lot of honey to do that. They have a lot of honey, but not that much honey. So what I suggested would be to use my distillate, and post-distillation, we create a recipe that takes the honey and adds it to the product in some quantity that we like the flavor, and then polish it and put it in a bottle.
How do you refine the honey to infuse with your vodka? That's got to be an entirely different process.
So you want to know the sweet trick without going into too much of the secret sauce? If your listeners understand how to make gravy, you take a little flour or cornstarch and you add butter to a pan.
Is it the same process?
And you kind of cook it, and then you add liquid to it. Then you can keep adding liquid to it and it'll keep staying consistent, right? If you take a cup of water and you pour in a cup of sugar and you stir it up, what happens? Yeah, you get simple syrup. But you don't get simple syrup at room temperature. You get simple syrup when you boil the water, and then you can concentrate more sugar into the water. So you can put more sugar in that water if you heat it up. And then when you cool it back down, it stays in solution because you've molecularly bonded sugar atoms into the water atoms, and it stays in solution. So I'm basically making sauce with alcohol. So we take an amount of distillate and an amount of honey, we bring it to a boil, we create a concentration so that the honey is used to the alcohol, and then we take that and then we add that in large quantity to a volume of alcohol. In a bottle of glass nectar, there's the equivalent of about 1 tablespoon of honey, and it looks like golden Chardonnay in the bottle. And when you taste it, it has this simple kiss of honey without that cloyingly fake flavor. It's all natural honey. So we first started using all the honey from Snoqualmie Hotel. What we actually then had to go do was find a better source for honey. So Danny Sullivan, my former Seafair pirate buddy, he actually has about 240 to 280 hives, depending on the time of year that he moves around the state. So in the spring, he's down south in raspberry fields and blueberry fields. And in the summer, he moves them to lavender fields. And in the fall, if the conditions are right, he'll even move them into the riverbeds.
He moves his hives?
Yes. So
What?
it's even called, in the world of honey, they would even call it zip code honey. So I know exactly where all the honey comes
I had
from.
no idea.
It is so geeky. You can get so deep into it, Brian. This is why that's what I use in Glass Nectar. So I know the source of all of our honey. We don't do anything to it. We heat it up, put it in the product, and that's it. The product could be called vintage because I know each batch, but I don't know. We have a great following. We sell this at 9 area Costco's, and I can't deliver it fast enough.
So now the glass spice, where are you getting your cinnamon? From Ceylon?
It's Ceylon cinnamon. It's Ceylon cinnamon. It only comes from Sri Lanka.
Oh, there you go.
And there's only 5 plantations in all of Sri Lanka that are allowed to call it Ceylon cinnamon. Ceylon is it is the kind of cinnamon that if you think about your grandmother, the proverbial iconic grandmother making cinnamon rolls on Saturday morning. Yeah, that's the kind of cinnamon that a baker would use. It's slightly sweet. When it's peeled from the tree, it's a very sustainable product because they peel a very thin, almost paper thin layer off of a tree. They call it like a quill. So if you were to go to a ski resort or Starbucks and you get a hot chocolate and they give you a stick of cinnamon and that damn thing is hard as a rock and it looks like a cigar and it's super hard, it's like a piece of like a stick. That is typically South American or Mexican cinnamon. It's no different. It's just grown differently and it's dried and then they grind that up into a powder. Ceylon cinnamon, the way it's peeled from the tree so that the tree can keep growing, is paper thin and they call it a quill. It's so soft and different in the way it's presented that you could take it and put it in your mouth and chew on it. A lot of people in Southeastern Asian cultures use it, they grind it up and they'll put it in a tea as a flavoring or sweetener because it's almost got a sweetness to it, which is why if you want to spend the money, it makes a gorgeous cinnamon roll because the cinnamon is just, it's sweet and spicy, but it's not the kind of cinnamon that you would get in like...
Intoxicating, it sounds like.
Yes, it is. And we find that people that like our glass spice product, it's almost like a snifter quality, sippable, sitting by the fire, almost like a brandy or a scotch. And it's warming without, it's not sweet. I don't add sugar. Don't think of it as that crazy devil label cinnamon vodka that everybody knows what I'm talking about. But it is a beautiful sipping vodka that just has this wonderful fall, winter-like quality to it.
The vanilla doesn't come out of a vanilla extract jar.
That comes from the part of the barrel, of an oak barrel, that is the first couple millimeters. Oak, when water touches it over a period of time, develops a flavor that is similar to that of vanilla. It's called vanillin.
Okay, yeah.
And those vanilla flavors...
Yeah, that's why you get it on wines all the time.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And why whiskeys, especially Scotch whiskeys, that take bourbon barrels, why it gets it. It is a chemical reaction that is vanillin.
And the cloves.
And the cloves, yeah. Also, all natural, buddy. All natural.
And your source on those?
That you can pretty much get from anywhere.
So you're okay with that? Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about... This is awesome, man. This is going deep.
Well, the key being is that the better the input, the better the output.
You're using organic Californian wheat.
Yes.
Is there a specific farm that you're using?
Originally, no, but now in our newest iterations of them, yes. And I'm using wheat from Goose Ridge Farms and Ranch over in West Richland, Washington.
So it's not Californian any longer?
Not any longer. We're trying to get even more sustainable in the way that we're producing things, and I'm trying to keep everything within 20 or 25 miles of the distillery.
Do you have specific vineyards that you're using for your grapes?
We haven't labeled it as such, but the true answer is yes. I can pull down to the exact vineyard and the exact vintage of what grapes we're using, and it changes all the time.
Of course it does, yeah.
The reality of distilled spirit, the alcohol portion of wine is ethanol. And when you heat it, you can break the alcohol from wine. You know, let's say you have a great Cabernet and it's 14.8, 14.5, whatever it is, percent alcohol. The other 86% or 85 point something percent of that bottle of wine is just water. And a lot of the flavor is sitting in that water because that's what comes in with the juice. But the alcohol portion is a combination of a bunch of alcohol molecules that are stuck together. When you distill, You slowly heat that up and you break off all the alcohols that you don't want. So in wines, there's acetone, methanol, frufurol, butanol. There's about 14 different alcohols that if you heat them up at certain temperatures will break off during the distillation process. If you want to make really pure alcohol and you want to make something like vodka, which is the purest of all alcohols, you have to do it in a fashion that you can pull off that alcohol that we want to drink, and that's ethanol. So same thing you burn in your car is really what you drink, except we put poisons in the stuff that you drink in your car. The closer to the pure ethanol you can get, the better the quality of the vodka. The ethanol, there's very few congeners that are left attached to those alcohol molecules that give it flavor. So it's really the water that's left in the last bit, the 4 to 6% of the distillate that is water that gives it the flavor. And if you leave more of those really shitty alcohols, frufurol, butanol, acetone, methanol, blah, blah, that's what gives the rock gut alcohols,
The impurities.
and the shittier flavors.
Yeah.
So the closer you can get to pure ethanol, the better the quality of the product. And there's economic reasons, there's other reasons of quality why people don't go so far as what a lot of small craft distillers would do. It doesn't make much economic difference for me to do rock gut versus really pure quality, because the absolute numbers aren't there. So I try and make it as best as we can.
So with the wheat, you're actually fermenting the wheat before you do the distilling.
You got it. So the grain alcohol versus grape alcohol, or let's say grain alcohol versus fruit alcohol. The chemical difference is there isn't a difference in ethanol made from fruit or made from grain, but it's the extra things that are sort of attached and around it that give it a different flavor. So grain alcohol, things that are made from corn, like Tito's, things that are made from wheat, like I'm going to say big names that people recognize it, like Grey Goose is made from wheat in France, and Tito's is made from corn in the United States.
Right. Shirak is grapes from France.
Yes, Syrah is grapes from France.
Right.
Belvedere, they make one
Potatoes.
that's made from potatoes. So each of these different things give the finished product a different mouthfeel, a different quality.
Like Luke Sasova, it's very obvious it's potato.
Yes, it's got a very viscous mouthfeel.
It really
to it,
does.
right?
It's starchy.
It's
very,
starchy.
Very
It's
starchy.
exactly what it
Yeah.
is. And most cultures make something that is similar to vodka, but it's really based upon what the primary source of starch in their diet would be. Some people think that most Russian vodka is made from potatoes. No, the Russians suck at potatoes.
Barley?
Barley?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wheat.
Yeah.
They are one of the biggest. United States, Australia, and Russia are the
Russia.
biggest wheat producers, right? Those are grains. So the difference between the grains, so we make this one product called Gridiron Vodka. It is a blend of grape and wheat distillates
Yeah.
together, and it just gives it a different taste and a different mouthfeel and
Right.
a different price point.
There's a
That's
different
it.
viscosity to it, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I want to talk about the vodka named after your dog, which is named after a city in Scotland.
It is. It is. Selkirk.
Yeah.
Selkirk.
There was
Oh, yeah.
was a battle there.
My late Labrador.
Your Labrador, that's right.
So my one of my favorite ski trips was up in the Canadian Rockies in a place called the Selkirks.
Okay,
And while
yeah.
skiing there, we're looking at these huge, monstrous granite peaks covered in snow. And
Gorgeous,
looking up,
right?
So really
Yeah,
cool. And
yeah.
I lived in Scotland, but I had forgotten my Scottish place names. But Selkirk means in Gaelic white church. So when you stand back and you look at these black granite covered spires covered in snow in the wintertime, you can understand why the old Scots that settled in these
It's
mountains
like
say,
a
"Look,
cathedral."
Yeah,
Right,
it looks
right.
like a cathedral. A stupid name to name a black dog.
No, it's
white
great.
church.
You didn't name him Frank,
Yeah.
which is cool.
True. So I saved the name, and then when we finally got a black Labrador to go with my golden Labrador, whose name was Shivas. Very creative. So we had Shivas and Selkirk, and we actually have a coat of arms, and there's two Labradors. One is Shivas and one's Selkirk.
That's awesome.
But we made a product. It's a distilled specialty spirit called Selkirk. when we took it out of the barrel after a period of time, which I'm not allowed to say because it's a distilled specialty
It's
spirit.
proprietary.
It's proprietary.
That's
but
right.
after the 2 years that it was sitting in this barrel for randomly, it happened to be February 15th. My Labrador was born on February 15th. Selkirk was with me the whole time I was building the distillery. She went to work with me every day,
Awesome.
slept on the floor,
Yeah.
and dealt with all my crap. And so I thought it appropriate to name this first distilled specialty spirit after Selkirk.
Now, it just rests in charred barrels. That's it.
Yeah, so if I were describing it to you in my tasting room, I'm going to tell you it's a barrel-aged vodka. But in the classification system that was developed after Prohibition, all of our spirits that we drink have to fall into a category. And if they don't fall into a category, you can't call it something that it's not. They have in the vodka category two things. Straight vodka, which is unflavored. It's distilled to at least 190 proof and then watered back down. It's usually 40% alcohol. And flavored vodka. They don't consider aged vodka a category because they forgot to name it. So for 300 years, if you live in Poland to this day, you can drink aged vodka. It's called Starka. And it's a widely produced spirit. We didn't classify that as a product. We don't call Starka. So Americans don't even know what Starka is. But all it is just something that was distilled to at least 190 proof and then put into a barrel. That's what I did. The classification is called Distilled Specialty Spirit, a DSS. But I'm not allowed to call it something that it's not on the label for legal purposes. I can't say barrel-aged vodka. So I have to call it vodka distilled from grapes, rested in charred oak barrels.
That's the exact verbiage.
Exact on the thing. And so Selkirk is really big ass on the front of the label, but all those verbiage underneath it has to come into there. And I bottle the spirit at 100 proof or 50% alcohol, not to get you bombed. I am doing it because the spirit is delicate when it goes into the barrel because it's high proof and it absorbs flavor like a sponge. So I put it in the barrel at about 120 proof. We distill it to 190. I add water, put it in the barrel, and we put it in what would be the equivalent of a bourbon barrel, which is New American Oak.
You're using charred New American Oak.
Charred New American Oak, a number 4 char. You put it in there.
Where's your cooperage? Where
in Kentucky. I get out of Kentucky.
Okay, this is the real deal.
Real deal. And we age it, even though I can't age it, but it sits there resting for about 2 years. And dude, in like 3 weeks, it goes from clear to brown. It develops flavor very quickly because, like I say, it's like a sponge. And after about 2 years, when we take it out, what it tastes like, it's got these really beautiful caramely nose. It has a lot of vanillins.
Yeah.
And then when you taste it, it's got a bit of a sweetness. And I liken it to either a Highland single malt Scotch whiskey or like an Irish whiskey because it's very clean when you taste it and it's very light when you taste it. But then it finishes like vodka because there's not a lot of impurities to it, even at high proof, if you're tasting it neat. But most people, especially Americans, we like things with ice and chilled and a little water, what have you. I prefer it neat. I sort of kowtow to people that want to add those things, but I want the people to appreciate what it is. So I bottle that spirit at 50% because it's like perfume. When you smell Selkirk, it just smells beautiful. And you drink it at 50% alcohol or 100 proof, it is not too hard to drink. If I were to water it down to 40 proof, 80 proof or 40% alcohol,
right,
I think it takes enough of away of it that there's less to appreciate.
You lose the nuance.
Yeah.
I get it. So we're going to talk about something different now.
Yeah.
I love this. You worked with QuickBooks, and was that the name? Is Own It Every Day is the name of what?
Yeah.
The title of your.
And I could say you could say your, but it was actually they. They called me out of the blue.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I answered the phone one night at the distillery at 7:00 at night, and some producer was calling me and saying,
a producer
from Intuit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
From Intuit software.
Yeah.
They had no idea, by the way, that I was using QuickBooks.
Yeah.
No idea.
Okay, right. So that's the disclaimer.
The idea was they wanted to do a series about with lessons learned from small business. And they'd seen a bunch of the social media content we had done. They just literally cold called me and reached out and said, we'd love to develop this series with you and put it out there. Would you be interested in having our film crew come out? And they came out and did a series of 5 episodes about lessons learned with small business and Glass Distillery.
They showed up to your place 5 different times?
Oh my God, it was so all pro.
Wow.
Dude, it was all pro. Camera crews.
They didn't do it in one day. It was in 5 different sessions.
We did it over 3 days, 3 different sessions.
Yeah.
But they had planned to be there for a week. And you probably saw a couple of the episodes.
I just learned about it this morning.
Shit, everything was in one take. We never reshot anything. They were crazed by how little time they had to spend to do this.
So did you ply them with vodka while they were there?
No, we couldn't even drink while we were doing it because they couldn't do drinking on camera.
After camera, though, they did drinking.
We had bottles going down the line, and I poured spirits, but no one drank anything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
They have a little integrity.
They do. Yeah, they do. It was sort of episode 3 when they learned that I actually used QuickBooks.
Well, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Now, you brought this up for anybody aspiring to do anything and whatever their creative endeavor is, whatever their business is. How important is social media?
Oh my God, these days?
Yeah.
I don't think that, I don't think a business at any size can ignore it. If you ignore it, then you're not really a business anymore. I think 10 or 12 years ago, you could kind of get along with both. There really is no way for any new business these days to find success without some integration of all social channels.
Here's my personal thing is that I'm on Facebook. I ignore it.
Yep.
But I'm actually, I write on Medium. I use Mastodon Social.
Yeah.
And I'm also, my kudos to LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been like the salvation of social media for me.
Yeah.
Because it's all legit. And if there's something you consider which is inappropriate for you or garbage, you can filter it out.
Yeah, and then you never see it again.
You kind of have to remind them a little bit.
Yeah, it's an algorithm. But it's not like Facebook.
No, it's not like Facebook. And so, like in the professional realm, LinkedIn, man, kudos, thank you, LinkedIn, for all you do.
All right, Brian, I couldn't agree more. And it's at every level. It's changed the way we interact with one another. Where, you remember how hard it used to be 15 years ago to go prepare for a meeting and have an engaging first discussion? You had to go to the meeting to meet someone to sort of get engaged, to find out if you wanted to dance.
Right, exactly.
Shit, now you can even just decide whether or not you're going to have a meeting.
Exactly.
You can dance a whole symphony together.
So what platforms are you using mostly?
Right now we are Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah.
We have several different Instagram channels and
really?
and Facebook, and also LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. But our newest and latest is going to be TikTok, and I haven't found the way to utilize TikTok, but with sort of the new culture of low alcohol, no alcohol drinking, we figured out a way that we're going to demonstrate to people you can have distilled spirits and create your own low alcohol without having to go buy things at the same price.
That's your TikTok channel right there.
Yeah, that's my TikTok channel.
Okay, so that's a lot of episodes. So now, are you doing your own writing?
We do our own writing. I wish I could hire someone like you. Dude, you are a talented writer.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We're talking about you right now. We're not about
Brian, I'm impressed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that. So we were talking a little bit earlier. I'm going to ask you, what books are you reading?
So funny. I found one that a buddy of mine suggested. Oh, it was you. Called How to Unfuck Yourself. Except they don't say fuck, but I do. So.
Well, it's F ** K.
Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce all those things, so I just say unfuck yourself.
Yeah.
But I think that's a pretty interesting one. If you would say what is on my nightstand, this is so crazy, but I'll admit this. This past year, my mother passed away.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you for that. And I have been fascinated by how much we can learn about friends and family after they pass away that we didn't learn, that we could have learned while they were alive.
If you had bothered to ask.
Yeah, or even known to ask.
Right.
And so I got some of my mother's belongings after she passed away. And one of my mother's belongings, she was an ordained minister. And one of her belongings that was sort of odd that I never knew she had was a copy of the Quran.
Oh, wow.
And it's an old copy, like from the 40s. And so it's kind of a cool, collectible old leather book. And there's notes in it. And I had no idea my mom even had a copy, let alone having my mother's handwriting in it. So oddly enough, what's on my nightstand next to me is a copy of the Quran. And I do not consider myself a religious person, but I'm fascinated by how religion has played such an important part over history and its control over people.
It doesn't matter who says it. Truth is truth.
Truth is truth.
And there's always going to be somebody trying to make a lie out of that truth.
Yes. So I think the best way we can learn about others is to study what causes people to be so devout to something. Why my mother had a copy of the Quran, I don't know. Probably because her desire to learn. Last time she picked it up, no clue. Would I have loved to have asked her that a year ago? When was the last time you read this?
Right.
But I wouldn't have known because I didn't know she had a copy. So I should just be happy that I learned this.
We actually talked about that earlier. The secrets that we all have.
Yeah. I don't understand it. Like someone who is devout to the religion, but you don't have to.
No,
but you can learn a lot.
So who do you consider your mentors?
No, I can honestly say that it's one thing that I've felt lacking in my career is lots of mentors. There's people I admire.
Well, your mentors don't have to be in your personal life.
Yeah, they don't have to be.
No, not at all.
I have lots of friends who have been lucky enough to have mentors that help guide them. My mentors have been those that I observe around me that have found happiness in their success and continue to push that forward. Yeah.
And I think there's more people that have not found it than those that have.
Isn't that
found
sad?
It. Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't get it. I guess I haven't been successful enough to get it.
Yeah, maybe that's where I'm still working.
Yeah.
I'll pick one because it's close to your heart, music. So here's someone that I never met, enjoy the music and the talent, and I got to experience what seemed to me to be pure joy, and that is Bono from U2. So we got to see U2 at the Sphere. Right about the end of October.
Oh my goodness. What was that like?
Unfucking believable.
I believe you.
168,000 speakers. Just the most incredible. It's like your music studio here.
Totally engulfed.
Perfect sound.
Yeah.
Visual experience. It's so encompassing. And rock stars that go on tour, that's a hard life. I don't care how sexy it looks. It's a hard life because they're still humans. They got to travel and blah, blah. It doesn't matter how much entourage you have. So if you get to be in a place like Las Vegas and people come to you and you don't have to travel, and you get to be in what is arguably one of the best venues of music ever, and you listen to The Edge talking about how he has been able to make sounds in a room that he could only do in a recording studio, but could do them live and have everybody else experience it.
Wow.
I saw that on stage with a group that's been happy doing what they're doing and staying together for so
decades.
Long, for decades, with a level of joy that you could just tell they absolutely loved it.
They still have that. The video from Red Rocks back in, God, what was it? 88 or 89,
Yes.
it's still that same
Yes.
intensity. Oh, yeah. What I mean, you can watch that video even today and you just go, oh, my Lord.
That's what it's like at the Sphere.
Who are these guys?
They actually have pieces of that in there.
Oh, do they? Yeah.
Without giving it away. It's amazing.
No, it's a pretty astounding concert.
So there's an example of someone that well, at least a band and an individual that has done something and they give back. It's not about their politics. It's just they have found success and joy, and then they found a way to give back to the world and the world community. Their community is so large, you're giving back to the world, and they keep giving back with the success they found. So I don't want to judge someone's success based on the size of their community.
No, you can't do that.
We often do that as
we all
culture.
do. I mean, it's only natural. It's still part of the tribe, man.
Yeah. If your
Who's
tribe
who's the kahuna?
Yeah. But if your tribe is 4, you give back to the other 3, you're just as important as if your tribe is 20 million. When we die,
it doesn't matter.
Gone.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're gone anyway.
Yeah.
86.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm gonna get pretty deep here, buddy. So how does Ian move from day to day when all the crap piles up? How do you deal with that adversity?
Coffee.
Okay, good. So you have an itinerary.
Yeah,
you follow up back on your daily routines? Is that what you do, or how do you?
Creativity is really what creates the spice of life, and I can't do everything the same every day. I am. There's no way to pattern me. If you wanted to figure out how to take me out, you better follow me all the time and just pick a time, because there's no pattern to except for my espresso in the morning.
Right. My question's kind of relevant to you.
Yeah.
The passing of your mom. I mean, you had a ton of stuff pile up on you this year.
Yeah.
And how did you get through?
My father-in-law passed away, and my mother passed away 2 weeks later.
Oh my goodness.
And I grew up in Michigan. My wife and I met when we were in high school. Our families have been close since we were 15 years old. To have 2 of the 4 of our parents pass away within 2 weeks of each other is just it's sort of indescribable, with neither being expected.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, both were sort of unexpected, and appreciating the grief and the loss is softened by the fact that I had this weird intuition before my mother passed away, and I was going to be traveling, and I knew I was going to sort of be traveling to middle of nowhere, and I wanted to go visit her, and I had this wonderful opportunity to spend 2.5 days with her, just screwing around and doing nothing, with no plan, and just kind of hanging out with her. And she had Lewy body dementia, which those who don't know it was that is the debilitating disease that Robin Williams suffered from, that actually caused him to take his life. And it's a crazy disease that challenges your ability to communicate, but you can still think, you can understand what's going around, but you can't say things. You lose control of your physical nature. Anyway, I had the opportunity to go hang out with my mom beforehand and just screw around. And I wished I'd had more of those opportunities, because we always say we have more of those opportunities.
My very last question for you, and I try to ask everybody this: what is it that you personally want people to know?
Wow. What is that I want people to know?
Yeah. What do you want people to know?
I wish people could understand the other person's perspective better than we do today. That there really is no right or wrong, that we've all created that which is right or wrong. But if we could all learn to put ourselves, and this is dumb because people say it all the time, but I mean, really, truly, just stop and think about it. If you could put yourself in someone else's shoes, especially the person that you might have animosity towards or that you're fighting with, where there's a negative feeling or vibe going back and forth, just stop. Just take a minute. Because the minute that you take to sit and think and chill about and try and understand the other perspective might give you a better outlook on why something is happening. And I wish there was a way that in our world, we could allow people to understand someone else's perspective and not just think that someone else's perspective is wrong. That's what I wish people could understand.
Yeah.
That's how I think all the time, and I wish we could all think that way. Because I can't do it. None of us could do it.
No, none of us could do it. I totally get it. Yeah, I'm with you, man. And as soon as you said that, the very one person that I have the most animosity towards came into my mind, and it was like...
Right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I ask you the question to sort of end it too. Did you have control over that thought? How did that thought come into your mind?
It just occurred.
It synthesizes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just occurred.
It's crazy. We all think that we are in control of our destiny, of our actions, of our thoughts, and we're not. And so if you can make that observation that you're not in 100% control.
No, but you can control what you do.
You certainly can observe and control what you do.
But the end result you do not control.
Yeah.
But we could go a lot deeper on that, but we're not going to. Hey, Ian, so how do people contact you and find out more about you?
Jeez, Bryan, you can find in the social media world, you just look up Ian MacNeil. Not the playwright, not the hockey player, but the distiller. You know, you can, if you want to get in touch with me, I don't know, write me an email at ian@glassdistillery.com. Crap, it's just going to get filtered out anyway.
Good for your filters.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Hey, Ian, I want to say thank you. This was awesome.
Bryan, I couldn't agree more. We're gonna have to have like a weekly cocktail session
we'll figure
to solve the problems of the world.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, great.
All right, man. Bryan at Mack-n-Cheeze out. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Want more Mac and Cheese? Bryan at Mack-n-Cheeze on YouTube. Bryan at Mack-n-Cheeze on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Fountain. You can also find us at www.mackandcheese.com. All rights reserved on our content. All right, take it away, Bruno.
What is the least used phrase in the English language? Hey, isn't that Bryan's Porsche?